Before we get started, it's really important for me to acknowledge that the Pivot Muse podcast is brought to us by Natina Muse. And Natina Muse is our love letter to Black women. We share our stories and our gifts with the world and make sure that every Black woman have an opportunity to share their narrative. It's our time. As you've pivoted through your life and career, who were your melanin muses and how did they impact your journey along the way?
My melanin muses. I started my career off as a sports reporter, and in such a male dominant industry, I'm so grateful that I was able to meet women along the way and truly hone into being like a girl's girl. During my time coming up, anytime I saw a Black queen, I'm like, hey sis, what's up, immediately. Of course, you go through understanding that we are multi-layered as Black people. Not everyone is always going to be on the same page or the same cadence as you, but I'm really grateful for those who I did meet along the way. Shout out to my girl Naomi, shout out to my girl Nicole, shout out to a lot of mentors that I've even gotten, heavy hitters, Commissioner Sonia Stills. I've had heavy hitters from different markets throughout the country. Sion Rose was one. I've really gotten to lean on some queens that helped and inspired me on my journey. I'm super grateful to even think of that moment and how that propelled me to where I am today.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. All right. So the Pivot Muse brings you curated stories and advice from global professionals on making one of life's most important decisions, the pivot. I'm your host, Natina Marie, and our guest today is Shaquira Martin, senior influencer, marketing coordinator, and we know a lot more. Let's get real and have this conversation. Talk about the pivotal journey of how you got here. Where did this dream and being who you are today start?
You know what? Not to even be cliche, it really started at church. I tell people I'm a PK, but really it's just the dynamics of my family. We all grew up in church. My mom is the baby of all of her siblings, so her oldest sister serves as an additional grandma for me, even though she's my aunt. And she was married into the church, and I was really close with that side of my family. Always took a lot of my time as a youth in the church. I always found myself in the spotlight, whether that was praise dancing, whether that was leading a song in a choir, whether that was trying to have one of the main parts in a Christmas play. I always was gravitating towards them. So that's really where it started for me. I can't believe that I've had the journey of life that I've had, but I'm grateful that God saw something in little old me to call me into the spotlight. It takes a lot of responsibility to carry that type of favor, as well as being in that position where so many people are looking at you. It's been a huge, humble experience thus far, and I'm just so grateful to be where I'm at today. I'm prayerfully paving the way for the next melanin queen to come behind me and do what I've done, but even better.
Right. I love that. Humble beginnings, but definitely church will get you together when it comes to performing, okay?
Listen, and I'm grateful that I started in church because I think your spiritual presence, regardless if you're Christian, Baptist, Muslim, Jewish, whatever your beliefs is, that core definitely carries you through this life. The journey is beautiful when you have something to return back to. Super grateful for my time in the church, super grateful for the experiences that I had that, like I said, propelled me into where I'm at today.
I love that. Talk about this journey from college into media.
Girl, I tell everybody, I went to school wanting to be a heart surgeon. I was solid in high school when it came to science and math. I was a part of the elite class because I was like top 10%. I was always used to making
Nice.
A's. You couldn't tell me nothing when it was like, I guess I'll go and try to do science and be a heart surgeon. I could not pass chemistry to save my life. And that was probably the first time that I was really honest with myself. And I was like, sis, we got to figure it out, because if you can't pass science, like how are we going to get into med school and go from there? So I had my first pivot where I was finding out who I was on the campus of Sam Houston State University. Shout out to the Bearcats. I was walking on campus one day. I saw a building that said communications. And in my mind, I literally said, yo, I know how to talk. So let's see what this is about. Because also, growing up the way I did, there was guidance, but there was a lot that wasn't provided for me to truly understand how this game of life works when it comes to going into college. I thought you had to do science or you had
Right.
to be a lawyer. It was like more logistical things and not creativity. I didn't understand the cadence or the impact of life when you hone into your gifts. So then I'm practicing like doing the radio stuff. I'm practicing what it's like to be PR. I'm practicing what it's like to have a mic in my hand and be on TV. And slowly but surely, not even looking, but just being, it was able to find me. It went from, oh my gosh, I like talking to, oh wait, I actually like talking about sports. Mind you, I never played sports. I never was coordinated to do so. But I love the thrill and how the game can really just bring a different impact to life, especially like the news is like sad. Shout out to the girlies that are doing the news daily. But for me and from where I come from, I didn't want to relive those or share those
Mhm.
stories. I wanted to have a different impact. So I became a sports reporter, or I deemed sports reporting as what I wanted to do. I graduated from Sam. I moved home and I lived in San Antonio for 3 months, and I had three different like call center jobs because I was in the middle of looking for my first big job. It took a while and I got fired on my day off. I can't make that up. Oh,
No.
I got fired on my day off. But listen, what was a devastation to me then ended up motivating me to my next pivot in life, which was okay, I'm just going to leave San Antonio and I'm going to ride to Houston. So I moved to Houston and I'm still applying for the TV jobs, but it's not working. People are telling me, oh, you need this, you need that. So I just started bartending. I was like, okay, let's make some good money. I was bartending at a nightclub here. It was up and coming, but it was in the middle of Houston becoming this hot spot of the place to be at. And I got a lot of experience there, but I was also in the middle of finding myself. I'm looking for a job. I'm also looking for myself and I'm figuring out life. I just woke up one day and I said, you know what? I'm just going to get back into school. I figured I could perfect my craft because I was such a perfectionist then. Let me get back into school and see where things can go since I'm not getting a job. No one's biting. I'm getting all of these rejections. Let me turn to what I know I have control over, which is broadening my education. I registered for TSU and I hit the ground running. My classes were in the middle of the day, so I got to experience that HBCU. But I'm also going through this life experience of learning what it is to really be a proud Black woman and having these conversations in my classroom that I wasn't having at Sam due to the space of being at a HBCU and learning how
Absolutely.
to be in community with people that look like me, but also having that PWI experience of knowing what that corporate world looks like as well. I'm getting all of these life gems. And then it comes down to when I was applying for jobs, they kept telling me, oh, you don't have experience, you don't have an internship. So during my time at TSU, I was able to apply for internships. Boom. So I get internships. I'm killing it. I graduate fall of 2017. And then the biggest rock bottom of my life happens. I ain't got no job. So I'm back to where I was prior to moving to Houston. It took me 2 years to get into this. Okay, we going somewhere. You're told when you get an internship, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. No, I was in the biggest depression of trying to understand what was happening in my life at this moment. I did what needed to be done. I checked the boxes off, and you're still telling me that I'm not good enough. What's going to happen? So I was looking for a job post master degree for 7 months, crying, figuring out how to at least survive in America. I was Ubering, I was door dashing, and I was dreaming. But also in that time, once again, I was finding myself, because who you are when you are at rock bottom says a lot about who you're going to be, regardless if you're on top of the mountain or in the valley. I'm
Mhm.
learning all of these assets of my character. And in that time is when I really start to lean on my faith. I really start to go hard of understanding what is my purpose. Once I'm in that space, how will that motivate me? What does this season in my life do for me for what's to come? I end up landing my first job in Lafayette, Louisiana. Shout out to the 337. And that was my first time sports reporting. Now, mind you, when I got that job, originally I wasn't even supposed to get the job because they offered it to somebody else and the girl declined. Every time when I found obedience into my purpose and in my calling, doors start to unlock. Even through the rejection of me trying to figure out when am I going to land my first job, how am I going to land my first job, every rejection pivot me to turn into a new path that eventually led to where I was supposed to be and where I was always going to be. When I was looking for my job for 7 months and then I landed that job finally in Louisiana, I had a spoiled career because I did things that are unheard of in someone's first market as a sports reporter. I covered the Saints no call game, which caused them not to go to the Super Bowl that year. I ended up covering a Heisman winner in Joe Burrow and LSU 15-0 run. I sung Nationwide is on Your Side with Peyton Manning. I met some incredible athletes. I covered incredible athletes in memorable times that you wouldn't have told me that was where I was about to walk into, with all the rejection, all the pivoting, and all the bumps that put me to where I was. I leave in the middle of COVID. I was able to land a job. My second job was covering the Kansas City Chiefs and everything Kansas. I went through a higher next level in my career, not knowing that at the end of what felt like my prime was going to be a low, because I ended up being diagnosed with a health issue. I was diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer. So if you're listening, please know that as a Black person, if you ever see a lesion, if you ever have a dark spot, please go and get that checked, because melanoma can happen to any of us. It doesn't discriminate. I got out of the TV business because I needed to focus on myself. That was a trying time because I was like, yo, I'm just now getting on it. I'm figuring it out. I know who I am. And then I'm ready to make that next level jump in my career, which was going network. I had an agent. Things were looking really good for you, girl. And I get diagnosed with
Mhm.
skin cancer. And then I turn around and I also get fired from my job. I had to sit back and really ask myself, like, okay, you've been figuring out who you are. Now, who are you?
Right.
This is a different type of pivot. You're not in college anymore pivoting. You're a grown woman with bills, diagnosed with skin cancer, let go from your job. In midst of all of that, who are you? And so for 3 years, I went through extensive therapy. I went through immunotherapy sessions for my melanoma for a year by myself. And once again, I was back at the drawing board of learning about myself, creating an opportunity to really be present and figure out, what do I want out of life? You've done so much, you've accomplished so many things. Has it been worth it? Is
Right.
the sacrifice that it took for you to get to this space, and now you're at the swinging low of the pendulum? How do we feel about this? During that time, I'm back to learning about myself and I'm growing, and I'm asking myself, do I still want to stay on TV or do I want to leave? It's a lot of politics that come with being on TV. I said it earlier. It's a lot of responsibility when it comes to being in the limelight, right? As a sports anchor and sports reporter, you're in the limelight. I'm going back and forth with how I feel. I'm doing like small deals on the side. I worked with the MEAC Sports Network, and I became one of the two first Black females to anchor a football show. In the midst of me having this up and down wave and pivoting, trying to figure out where my feet are gonna land, I'm just being and I'm just going with the flow. It's getting towards the end of my lease. I'm living in Wichita, Kansas. I'm ready to move. Randomly, the Texans post this job called senior influencer. Let me just try out for the job, not even knowing what the job was. When I go through the interview process, they share with me what my role would entail of. This is a pivot because I'm not on TV anymore. I'm now joining the admin side of the sports world, and this is marketing. We're just going to jump off this cliff and know that I'm not going to fall down when I jump. I'm literally going to fly and I'm going to land. That's exactly what happened. This was a brand new role. And now I'm building an influencer program from the ground up and doing something that this organization has never done. Once again, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for those hard pivots, those hard lessons, me getting fired, me having skin cancer and going through therapy to understand myself better, to now work for the National Football League and really be a heavy hitter with not just any team, but a Houston sports team.
Right.
This is where people dream to land eventually in their career. And I was able to do it at 31.
Amazing. You have said a lot. Your story is beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing the journey. Let me first say I'm glad to be here talking with you on the other side of your treatment for skin cancer. You have such a beautiful spirit. I love the fact that I have this opportunity to talk with you, and I'm happy you're doing well. You talked about learning yourself in those things that you had to deal with, and the fact that you went through treatment for a year by yourself. What does that look like? I also like to help people get financial literacy. And so, were you previously good with saving money? How do you make it through something like that?
First off, when you're starting at these jobs in the news, like it looks glamorous, but my first job, I was making $30,000 and making it look good. I don't know how.
Let the people know. Come on, Shaquira.
Call it tithes and offering. That's the only thing that I could think like why I was so blessed still with $30,000 because I was very content. I aspire to have more, but I was able to do what I needed to do. By the time I got fired, I was just beginning to learn how to be an adult. My brother is really big into financial literacy and we're 12 years apart, so there's a lot that he does that I can look at and admire, but feel like mentally I'm not there yet. But finally, I'm catching into the groove of getting there, and then I got fired. The number one thing that my mom has always taught me was to use your resources. And resources were available, not just unemployment, but resources to help pay for your rent, resources of different community funding that would provide for your electricity and whatever it is that you needed to keep going. I really tapped in and had no shame with figuring out how to utilize those resources that were available for me. Let me tell you how wild this is. And God is so good because I literally tapped into a random resource and my rent was paid for a full year, even after I landed my job in between. Just because I was
Wow.
digging into what resources were available in that city, I found one that paid my rent for a year. This gave me the opportunity
God
to
is good.
save after I don't know how long. And I'm saving like thousands of dollars because I'm not paying my rent, but I get a job at the Red Cross, and it really taught me a different side of life, the humanitarian side of life. I'm going through immunotherapy. I have my hybrid position with the Red Cross, and my rent is getting paid. I was like, okay, girl, this is your time to adult up, level up, and figure out how do you make this worth it? There goes that sacrifice again. What am I sacrificing? Okay, I need to put money to the side because I don't know what's gonna happen, but greater is coming and I want to be prepared. I've never been able to set myself up like this. I think it was just a mental switch of me wanting to just better position myself. And I think that comes with time and age.
An
And
experience.
you can't get mad at yourself for being 21 and not knowing how to think like that. It's great if you could start at 21, but I've learned to have compassion with myself for not knowing. And I talked about when I used to bartend, I was making bank, but I had nothing to show for it when I finally left my job to go to school or when I got my first job because I didn't understand financial literacy. It's okay to not understand, but it's a problem to not learn.
Mm. Now that was a gem.
It's
Thank you.
okay to not understand, but it becomes a problem when you're resisting that opportunity to learn, to grow. I'm not gonna lie, I was a person resisting. I wanted to spend my money. I wanted my red bottoms. I wanted this. I wanted that. I wanted the material things at those moments. But the older I got, the more I truly start to live and understand what do you have to show for everything that you've been through. I was also able to, I had great insurance, shout out to the Red Cross, but I was able to meet what I needed to do and take care of things like my credit score while paying doctor bills and staying on top of providing a better life after whatever season this was. I just needed to be better. I needed to grow. That's mentally, spiritually, and physically because we know like you can't be naive in America.
Absolutely.
So I went through a time where I was just growing. It looked like growth. It was a lot of tears, but I'm so grateful for those tears because that's how a plant is able to grow. You need the water just as much as you need the sun. You need those storms that are going to come and just soak in your grass and the dirt around you. You need that transformation of your pot getting the resources that it need for you to bloom into what you're supposed to blossom into. I'm grateful that during that time I was just in a space of growing and just being present of what was happening and knowing that I couldn't control certain situations and certain circumstances, but the one thing that I could control was my growth. I couldn't control when I was going to grow an inch or but I could grow feeding myself. So that's what that looked like. Nurturing, seeing
Mm.
yourself, tapping into the little you. And listen, therapy is the hardest thing to do because no one talks about the shadow work. When you have those revelations of why you do what you do and all of the other things. Like people think you go to therapy and you're just healed. You really learn about yourself. And during that space of learning, like you have to feed and nurture yourself while you're being exposed to every part of you. It took a lot of feeding into myself.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're an influencer, major influencer. Shout out to Michaela because I really love this question. An influencer finding influence. Who is your biggest influence and what keeps you going?
Ah! That's a good question. It's
Right?
one of me on me. Okay. I have an influence that is someone who I look up to, and then I have an influence on the one that's coming behind me. The guidance and the mentorship that I look up to would be like Mamba Mentality Coach. I really hone into 1% better,
Mhm.
really growing, really getting into a space where like the affirmations that you're feeding yourself, there's a different switch. You got to know when to be the beast and when to chill. I really love to this day Kobe Bean Bryant. The influence that I speak of that is coming behind me would be my nephews. Being someone that they can look up to and be proud of. Also getting cool points because we know Gen Z is really hard to get validation from.
Absolutely.
It's super hard from them, but those two are going to be stepping into my legacy and then also creating their own legacy. And I pray as much as they might look up to me that they understand how they motivate me to want to do better, to want to be a better aunt, a better friend, a better sister, a better daughter. They make me who I am.
I love it. Being in this male dominated field, how have you incorporated women and Black culture in your work today?
The best thing that I can say that I really am intentional about is showing up just with respect. How do you carry yourself, knowing as a woman, eyes will be on you a little bit quicker because you're the minority. If you, and at times, can only be the only Black woman, what are you doing while you're taking up this space? What is your purpose? I feel as though Black women, especially in corporate America, we're dealing with so many adversity left and right that we all tend to lean on whatever you feel is a priority for your space. And for me, I just want to make the space better than where I found it. And sometimes that takes you falling on a knife or being the test rat for them to know what not to do. You might say something to me about my hair, but I bet you this interaction, you won't ever ask a Black woman about that again. That's helping the next Black woman not have to go through what I went through because of a situation that may have hurt me, but for the bigger picture, it's helping all of us. So, being in a male dominant space, I really just like to take up space. Therefore, the next sister could absorb that space and then some.
I love it. Thank you. Share some of the stories in your career, whether it's now or previously, where you had to pivot out of something you felt really strongly about. And how did it turn out when you leaned into being flexible?
You're talking to a Capricorn, so that means I want to control everything. I have to have a daily reminder that I can't control things, especially because if I could control things, I would have been a heart surgeon. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
when I relinquish my power and I truly become submissive to God and to where life is taking me, there's a beautiful quote that I love, and it says, "Once you learn to let go of the life you're planning, you can then accept the life that's waiting for you."
I love that quote.
I
Yes.
try to let that thought carry me because it's hard at times to relinquish control. Especially as a Black woman, we show up in a space where we know what we got to offer. We know what we doing, honey. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Just know that you gonna want to follow this trend, boo. I'm leading the wave. I'm creating the wave. But sometimes you have to relinquish to be a student in life. You can't always be a master because if you show up knowing, then you have no space to learn. I'm currently pivoting right now because I never thought that not being the next Pam Oliver would ever be something that I had to think about. I thought I was going to be a sports reporter. I thought I
Right.
was in, I was committed. This is my lane.
Mm.
I'm doing, and then I'm done with TV.
Right.
I can't have the space of freelancing and doing the side things with sports reporting because it's not just a football season. There's so much planning that happens into the next season. Each day, I'm learning that when I accept the life that's here waiting for me, I'm creating an influencer program that's never been established before in the city of Houston in professional sports. I am not only creating an influencer program, I'm bridging the gap between the culture and this National Football League and opening a doorway where you don't see just a transactional exchange of come here and perform for us. No, I'm creating a space to say, come here and kick it with us. Guess what?
Right.
You get to kick it. We don't want you for your talents. I just want you to come and kick it and be a
Mhm.
fan of the sport that you love because when you strip away our titles, we're all human. We all love to cheer and laugh and argue about why someone is making you mad on the field or what you think we needed to do in order to win this game. We all connect in some beautiful way. When I let go of what I wanted planned for my life and I pivot into this mindset of not falling, but flying and landing, I'm in a space of gratitude. I'm in a
I
space
love
of just being aware of my purpose being activated. I'm no longer trying to control and run the show. I'm just being. I don't have to worry about doing.
that. That's a gem right there.
As Black women, we feel the need to show up and protect ourselves because, as Malcolm X long stated, Black women are the most disrespected person here. But as society is changing and people are becoming aware, we deserve a space of realizing you don't always have to be in control. When you are present into seeing those around you, you make these connections because you feel safe. You look around you and now you have a community of people that love you and that support you to where you don't always have to be in control and running the things and showing up as this powerful heavy hitter woman. No, sis, you deserve to just be.
Right. I received that. Thinking about the future, and you've had some pivots, you've had some intentional and some that were placed in front of you. What do you see in the future? What other spaces are you trying to pivot into intentionally?
Is this a therapy session or a podcast? I say that because that's a good question. That's actually like where I'm at today on my beautiful Saturday of just relaxing, like being intentional about what does the next year look like for me without planning it, but who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in spaces? How do I take the lessons now that are preparing me for whatever season is ahead? I don't know. I couldn't have told you I was going to get fired. I couldn't have told you that I was
Right.
going to get skin cancer. I couldn't have told you I was going to go through some of the life traumatic stuff that I went through prior to all of that. You know, I can't tell you who I am. So as I look into the future, it's all about leaning into everything that I have learned that has prepared me for the now that will push me into the future of tomorrow. It's how do I stay true and consistent to who I've become? When do I check in and how do I check in to know you can change your mind? You can unpack that and leave that. It's not serving me anymore. It's about acceptance. It's about discipline. It's about courage, honoring who I am, where I've come from. And also, it's about saying no to create space to say, hell yes. That's what the future is about for me.
I love that. Yes, yes. Saying no to make space to say hell yes.
You gotta say no because when you say no,
Mhm.
then that's giving you, whether it's 1%, 10%, whatever, that discipline will definitely open up doors to what God has in store for your life by just knowing obedience is what unlocks the key of understanding and purpose. And that's when we grow. That's when the sun comes out on your face. That Nina Simone, dragonflies flying in the sky, you know how I feel. That's
Right.
when you get to that space.
Yes, yes, I love it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I do want to save time for us to play Pivot or Push. This has been an amazing talk. I do want to say what's in my spirit before we play this game,
Please speak
and
to
that
me.
is genuinely, as you talk, I'm envisioning you doing a TED talk. I'm like, well, she gonna write a book because sis, we need you.
That might be like Real Housewives of Atlanta mixed with a little bit of being Mary
Okay.
Jane with some
Yes, yes.
green leaf, just all of it in the one.
All of it, all of it. No, but that's in my spirit. I feel motivated, inspired, all the things. And I want to make sure I tell you that. And I do appreciate you making time to be with us.
Thank you for holding space for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's play Pivot or Push.
Okay.
You are turning 30. You find yourself caught in a rent buy dilemma for your new home. No substantial savings. The option you have is to either basically cash out on a modest investment portfolio where you would have $30,000, or you keep your investments in place, tossing up this housing aspirations. Do you deliberately pivot and cash out on your investments and buy the home, or do you push through and save?
I'm gonna push through and save on this one.
Yeah, love it. You are entering a serious relationship and you discover significant differences in values and life goals. Or while tempted to pivot away and seek a more compatible partner, you deliberate on whether open communication and compromise can bridge the gap, or if it's time to move on and focus on your personal happiness. Pivot or push?
I've been in a relationship where it's both happened. It depends on what is the love that I am feeling. Is if I'm feeling safe, if I'm feeling still seen and heard, and that's just your opinion and how you think, and you're honoring mine, I can pivot to where we can find that line of compromising, because that's the point of a relationship. But if the love is feeling complicated and it's a lot of trauma responses happening and I don't feel safe, I'm going to keep it pushing. I'm going to keep it pushing.
I love it. Okay. So you have a child and they are expressing a strong interest in unconventional curricular activities. You face the choice of pivoting towards supporting their passion or adhering to the traditional paths of education, balancing the potential benefits of nurturing unique talents against societal expectation. Do you pivot or push?
Oh, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to support, because when I do bring a child into the world, you're not here to live my life. You're here to live your true calling. And if that's who you want to be, and if you have a plan of how you want to succeed and you can see clearly in your vision, I'm going to support you. And that's friend, kids, anyone.
Right. We learned that even for ourselves, sometimes society is in your ear, on your in your news feed, all those things telling you what you should do, who you should be, and you definitely have to really focus in on being self-aware.
Listen, my brother told me one thing that has stuck with me forever, which is when you make a decision, you got to stand 10 toes down with whatever comes after that decision, good or bad. As long as
Mm-hmm.
you comfortable with that, then you really into who you are. You know what you're about. But if you're not comfortable with that, then you got too many people in your ear that's
Right.
having that influence on you. I agree with you. It's definitely about knowing who you are and knowing when to silence society, and also when it's just okay to observe, learn. You eat the chicken and you leave the bones.
Right. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you.